What's up? Welcome in, Hoge and Jahns, back with you with one final episode before the big game, before the Super Bowl featuring the Chiefs yet again. This time against the Eagles yet again. Adam Hoge is still in the Big Easy. Kevin Fishbain is here. What's going on, Fishman?
Hey, Johnsy, where are you at with this? It's Eagles Chiefs again. Some fatigue. Like, would it be more fun if it was Bills Lions?
I'm with you. My answer to that is yes. There is some fatigue with the Chiefs. I reached that point with the Patriots as well, where you just want different teams to watch essentially, and the Bills were like the perfect team for me. Superstar quarterback, a fan base that deserves it. I even felt the same way about the Lions to a certain extent. How about you?
Yeah, I go both ways on it because you have this admiration for greatness, right? Like, you want to see this, like, the three-peat would be historic. And Mahomes and Reed and what they've done. But yeah, I mean, obviously, there'd be a lot more storylines that we, haven't had before. It's funny because those of us living in Chicago in the 90s where people probably were complaining about the Bulls.
Absolutely.
We didn't complain about the Bulls.
No,
Like
absolutely.
we didn't say that we were tired of the Bulls winning all the time.
There
So,
was the year where the Patriots had a chance to match the Dolphins' undefeated record.
yeah.
Like, I was actually rooting for that type of greatness. I think that is beyond special. They obviously lost to Eli Manning and the Giants in the Super Bowl that year. There's the Randy Moss team too. Like, I
They were
wanted to
incredible.
see something special that year. They were incredible the entire season to that last game.
Yeah. I was writing about them for Pro Football Weekly
Wow.
that year. Yeah.
What year was that?
2011. And I
Oh,
actually do remember because we get this a lot about, you know, what kind of team would you rather cover? And obviously, you'd rather cover a team that's relevant and in the mix. But I will tell you, someone who had to, I was covering them kind of from afar, but I was writing about them every week. I do remember there were times where it's like week 14. It's like, all right, like, you know, Gronk had a great game again. I might be confusing my Patriots teams. 'Cause I think the one, maybe I did not cover the one you're talking about, but I did cover one that was like went on some like 11 game win streak to like and then went on to the Super Bowl. And I just remember like I did find like a little bit of a struggle by like week 14. Belichick did it again with his defense. Brady was dicing it up. Like what else could you say?
I like seeing different teams kind of compete for this. I'm with you. The specialness, the uniqueness of what the Chiefs are about to accomplish, because I think you and I agree the Chiefs are going to win this. There's your Super Bowl preview. Uh, that's special. That should be celebrated. But to your point, to your question, they're going to be great again next year and 2
Right.
years from now. It'd be nice if other teams maybe injected themselves every now and then. Just
I
my
will
thought.
say the last time the Chiefs weren't in the Super Bowl, it was Bengals Rams,
Yeah.
right? Which was fun. I mean, Burrow and Stafford, it was a great game. But I don't know. Like there's still more excited. There's still more interest in the Chiefs because of who they are. And I did get my years wrong. You were talking about the '07 Patriots. I did not cover them. I covered the 2011 Patriots for Pro Football Weekly, and they went on an 8-game win streak to end the season on their way to the Super Bowl the second time they played the Giants. And I did like you kind of, you and I know that like when you cover a team that like combusts the way the Bears did this year, like there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of things to kind of talk about, but there's so many things you can't write about.
Oh yeah. This
You
is
can't cover.
we where you get the criticism like, oh, you're just writing this for clicks. You and I both know that success, winning teams, drives more interest, more readership, more subscriptions, more viewership, more listeners than anything. I covered the Blackhawks, 2 of their 3 Stanley Cup championships, and the interest in them was amazing. I could write anything, any little story about anybody on that team, from Andrew Shaw to Brandon Saad to Nicholas Hjalmarsson. It hit because everyone on that team was of interest, just like the Bulls in the 90s. Judd Bushler, Luke Longley, anyone on that team is of interest. When you're a team that has 10-game losing streaks, it's all about what's next. That's what people want to read, at least what the numbers say. You know the deal. Read me and Kevin on theathletic.com. Adam Hoge is on allchgo.com. I'm sure he's interviewing someone somewhere in New Orleans today, so make sure to check out his stuff on allchgo. Today's episode, Kevin, before we finally wrap up the season, there's going to be a Q&A episode. There's been a lot of changes for the Bears. Free agency is right around the corner. The NFL scouting combine is later this month. The NFL calendar moves on quickly here. So there's a lot of questions, a lot to get to. So let's have fun with this. You want to start?
Yes, and listeners should know I have not seen these questions.
Yes.
It's a big surprise coming.
Big surprise. Let's give you an easy one to start. This is from Brandon. What needs to happen in free agency, the rest of the draft, for you to be on board with Ashton Gianti at number 10?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think you would need to sign 2 offensive line starters, and you would need to add a bona fide pass rusher, whether he be on the edge or interior. I think you need to feel really, and you know what? It's like you'd also like have to feel good about Braxton Jones. I don't know, I think there's a lot that you'd have, but you would need to really get to late April and look at the lines and say, okay, they don't need to use a first round pick in the line. And to do that, I think you need Trey Smith, Dahlman up front on the offensive line. I'm not sure who you would sign defensive line, but you would need to do that for me to get there with Genti, which I think it's possible. I think it's very possible you could do that.
I strongly believe that you need to sign at least one starting offensive lineman in free agency. I think if you're Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson to a certain extent, you go into those meetings probably next week. We have Braxton Jones on the left side. He could work out for one more year, and we got Darnell Wright locked in on the right side. We need a starter at left guard, center, and right guard. Let's go find one in free agency. Let's go sign someone of note. Let's give out a big contract. We have the salary cap space. Let's find someone better than Nate Davis to lock in place for the next 3 years and shore up the inside of our offensive line to help Caleb Williams. Like, you need one starter out of free agency to put with Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. Are you okay with Braxton Jones being your starting left tackle? Maybe that's part 2 of this.
Actually, I mean, I am. For one thing, like the wonders it does for your cap to have 2 tackles on rookie contracts. And like Braxton Jones, when he was healthy, was fine. Like, I think it kind of reminds me a little bit of Charles Leno, right? Where like, and now the different Leno was very durable throughout his time here. And Jones was his first year. I don't think he missed a snap. But you'd like I think he'd be fine there, but it all depends on how he recovers from this injury. And you're not going to know that really until April at the earliest, if you're the Bears. So, but they're absolutely worst guys you could have starting out there than Braxton Jones. I do, and here's another thing I was thinking about, Jahns. Like, I know everyone's lasting memory of Karan Amagaji is that Monday night disaster, which he was just thrown into a horrible situation. He's still he's a 3rd round pick who's got the measurables, to be something. Like, again, I'm not ready to say ignore left tackle, but if the Bears get to April, May, and they haven't made a splash at left tackle, you can still talk yourself into those 2 guys being there.
Only if you strengthen the middle.
Yes. And by the way, it's Drew Dahlman. The entire podcast offers its apologies that we have not been able to just say his name. Drew Dahlman, the center for the Falcons.
There you go. Let's follow up on this. This is from Jason on X. Multiple people are stating that they see the Bears in on Trey Smith. Do you see the Bears spending 20 to 25 million for the guard, or go for a lower tier and he's got a bunch of different names, including Dahlman, and sign 2 of them? So I guess the question is 2 Nate Davises or 1 Trey Smith?
Give me the 1 Trey Smith.
Yes.
And I don't think I expect the Bears to be very involved in it.
Will he even hit free agency?
It's that's the funny thing about free agency. Like, the best players don't get there, but it's like the Chiefs, they reload, and I would expect him to get there, but yeah, I guess anything can happen in Kansas City. But I think the Bears should strongly consider it. I'd have no problem. And if they give him 20, 22 a year, people are gonna say it's an overpay, but I don't. Every free agent signing is a theoretical overpay, and I'm using quotes. So that doesn't impact me at all. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's been durable. Great story on him by Dan Pompei that folks should check out. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer. You're comfortable spending that much money on him.
You have the Ryan Poles connection. He was part of that draft evaluation that brought him to Kansas City, so that helps eliminate some concerns, especially as you want to kind of relate it to what happened with Nate Davis, where you didn't have that direct connection, that direct draft evaluation that the Bears would have with Trey Smith. I don't know. My answer to a lot of these questions is, well, is he really going to be available? It wasn't that long ago we were talking about Chris Jones being potentially available and the Chiefs moving on from him, and look who he's playing for in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Just saying, teams will find a way to make money work for their best players.
There's always money in the banana stand, as we learned from Arrested Development.
Yes,
and that goes in both ways.
Very true. Very true. This is from. Let's find a good one here. Let's kind of stay with this offensive line. What do we got here? I thought I saw one on Tevin Jenkins.
No is the answer.
No.
Yeah.
No. What? Resign him?
Yeah.
Why not?
I think, unfortunately, Tevin Jenkins didn't answer your question, which is, can he stay healthy for a full season? I mean, how many did he have? 3 different injuries this year?
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. And some of it's luck. We know how hard he has worked to get his body to a point that he could, get there, and things just happen in football games. It sucks. We all know what he plays like when he's at his best, and I just think that you saw it last year, and I think you got to let him test the market. Does he test the market and realize there's nothing there? You still have an opening, and you give another shot, maybe. But with the new coaching staff, I think that's one where you probably move on.
Yeah, here's the question I was looking for. It's from Cullen. With so much looming over the Bears' offensive line, what does the future hold for Tevin Jenkins? He was solid when he wasn't hurt, but injuries have haunted him in his career. That's his story. Great player when he's healthy. Great player when he's pancaking the opponent, and he did that a lot over his 4 years, but just couldn't stay healthy. Just can't stay healthy, and that's part of his issue hitting free agency as well. Teams need to see some durability, so you might have to take a 1 or 2 year contract somewhere to prove that to some team.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, he seems like a prime, what's it, like a 1 year, $10 million contract, maybe, and then he hits the market again. And if he could stay healthy for a full year, or maybe just miss 1 or 2 games, then he could really cash in. But I think it was just tough luck for him this past season.
This is from Raging Bear Fan. Do you think a Khalil Mack return is realistic? What are some other defensive free agency targets we could see the Bears go after this year?
Khalil Mack's interesting because, are the Bears in that position they need somebody else opposite Montez Sweat? Do they go get somebody like Mack, that's probably a 1 year contract that doesn't really hamstring you financially, but like that's also a win now, like right now move. And would you rather get a younger guy you give that 3-year deal to? You don't see guys like that return to teams very often. So I don't see it happening. But
Like what
I get the idea of it. Like somebody like Khalil Mack might make sense opposite Sweat if it's just for a year or two.
Khalil Mack is going to sign like a 1-year, $8 million contract with the 49ers.
Yeah.
It's what teams like that do. They find the veteran pass rushers, they plug them into what they do. It works. They go for the playoff run, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think the Bears are in that category for Khalil Mack. Like, what does Khalil Mack want? Does he want to go find that Super Bowl run? Does he want to flirt with the Eagles? Does he want to flirt with the Bills? Does he want to try the Bengals? Does he want to try, who am I missing here? Well, the 49ers, teams that are in contention, the Rams, teams that have good quarterback play. Who knows? Teams that
The
are
Eagles are interesting. I don't know their edge rusher situation for next year, but Vic Fangio, he would probably support that.
yeah. So I would say no. I don't think that's gonna happen. Here's one. This is from Brett. What are your sources around the league saying about Caleb? If people soured on him like they did with Mitch, or do they still see that prospect from last year?
We can't tell you, Brett. Those are our sources.
Yes.
I will say
that's a story you could read after the.
You can read about
though.
that at The Athletic. Yeah, I will say I touched on this a little bit in my story after the Senior Bowl. That, like, when I was talking to people about the Bears, there weren't people being like, "Oh, are you sure the Bears have their guy?" There weren't a ton of. I think everybody understands what he went through. I think everybody understands the talent is still there. It was just a lot of. It was a bad situation. I think everybody agrees that it wasn't as good as they thought it was going to be.
But I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
Tons. So yeah, but I haven't necessarily gathered a ton of like alarm bells. I think everybody's just very curious to see what it looks like with Ben Johnson.
Here is the best source on this, and his name is Ben Johnson. There's no doubt Caleb played a large component into my decision. He is a phenomenal talent that had, as many quarterbacks do, an up and down rookie year, where I see my role as a supporter of him. This offense will be calibrated with him in mind. We're going to build this thing. This is not simply a dropping of a previous playbook down on the table and starting there. Nope. We're ripping this thing down to the studs, and we're going to build it out with him first and foremost. It's a good source.
Hey, he's okay.
I go with that source. The offensive coordinator who is leaving behind the Detroit Lions to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. This is from Ethan. Who are your top 5 options at pick number 10?
Well, Ethan, let me open up today's big board
from Adam Jahns.
From Adam Jahns. And I'm going to look at his list, and then I'll tell you which ones I like. Well, it's your list. So who are you? I mean,
so my top. I'm not taking a running back at 10. I don't think the Bears are in position for that yet. So my top 5 are Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU. Even if his arms aren't 33 inches long, I am fine with putting him as my starting left or right guard. I think he is that good. Mason Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan. If he happens to fall to number 10, there's that 3 technique that Matt Eberflus was looking for 3 years. Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall. His film. Who did he put on? Which offensive lineman did he run over?
Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon.
Ooh, that's a second round pick.
Yeah. Who still had one of the best weeks at the Senior Bowl.
Wow. He's on my list. Shamar Stewart, edge rusher from Texas A&M. And I guess the 5th would be I don't know, Josh Simmons, maybe from Ohio State. Jalen Walker, he strikes me as like a Nolan Smith like player. Well, he's from Georgia as well, where you got that hybrid linebacker, the Swiss Army knife player, the edge rusher. Georgia produces players like this all the time. Nolan Smith went late in the first round, I believe, to the Eagles. We'll be watching him on Sunday. Those would be my top 5.
I'll throw in one more is Kelvin Banks from Texas. I'm very curious to see where he goes. He was like a very popular mock draft pick to the Bears early on. And I just wonder if he's the type of guy that, like, it's kind of unfair, but Texas played so much on a national stage. So anytime he got beat, and like guys are going to get beat, it seemed to be like people remember that and maybe don't have as high of a thought on him as they did at the beginning of this process because there's so much tape on him. But I would say you could find more than enough reason to think that he could be there as a tackle or guard. So I would throw him in there. Otherwise, seems like you got all the guys there.
If your starting offensive line next year is Braxton Jones, Will Campbell, Ryan Bates, Trey Smith, and Darnell Wright, how would you feel about that?
Fine.
You think they could have done
good.
better?
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with Ryan Bates. I mean, I don't know how good you could feel about. I mean, maybe this was just a rough year, bad luck with a concussion, has a shoulder thing, and then suddenly he shows up in the spring and he has everything Ryan Poles has always coveted from him. And then you feel really good. I guess it's possible.
What did you see? Gray Zabel was at the combine, right? Or not
Yes.
the combine in Mobile.
Yes.
Good
I like him.
player.
Yeah. I liked his. You know what I like? His core strength. Like guy got up and he held his ground.
His anchor is what you're looking for. Is his anchor.
Good
Center,
anchor.
potential center option.
Center guard.
Did he play center in Mobile a little
bit? He
did.
Yeah, that was what they wanted to see him do, and I did all right. So much of that is like, as you know, like you got to ID everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so how about an offensive line of Braxton Jones, Will Campbell, Gray Zabel, Trey Smith, and Darnell Wright? Is that too many rookies for you?
No, I think that's fine. And I think Ryan Bates would be fine, because look, if Ryan Bates is your starting center come the fall, I think that is because Ryan Bates has looked so good. Because I'm sure they're going to go through a lot of options, and he would have won that competition or proved himself before they got to the draft. So, it's a weird on Monday. I think it's Monday. You could read my annual salary cap preview. Ryan Bates is an interesting one where if you cut him, you get $4 million of cap savings and $0 dead money. So, from a financial perspective, if you've already decided that he's probably not going to start for you, and maybe you don't even he's not even in the mix, that's a very easy financial decision. But like, what's Ben Johnson's evaluation of Ryan Bates, and that could play a factor because it's not like cross prohibitive to keep him either.
No. Here's an interesting question. Oh, of course, I just lost it. Hold on. Where did it go? From Roger, who's got a 49ers logo in his bio. Okay, Roger. What are the odds that the Bears trade Tyson Bagent?
When I did the Myles Garrett mock trade proposal, there were a lot of people in the comments that wanted me to take off one of the firsts and include Tyson Bagent. Can I give you a little secret? Tyson Bagent is not the same as a future first-round pick.
He's not.
He is not. He's a very, very valuable player to have as your backup quarterback. He does not take the place of a future first-round pick. Well, here's the follow-up to that is if you're trading Tyson Bagent, who's your backup quarterback? Like, you need that's something we haven't. I don't know if we've talked about this, Johnsy. Is Ben Johnson gonna want a veteran quarterback in that room? It's something that Ryan Poles they decided not to keep one. I think I would have been curious what would have happened if Brett Rippon didn't get poached by the Vikings.
Oh, I bet you they would have kept him.
I think they would have kept him. I think they really valued his experience, and then when he wasn't there, I think there was something missing in that room. And do you keep a roster spot on your 53 for somebody like that to join the room? And if you do, is that guy good enough where you do feel like you could move Tyson Bagent? Um, it's an interesting thought, but I think with Bagent, it's got to be, man. The problem is if you're Team X and your starting quarterback gets hurt in July and you're panicking, I don't think you're trading for Tyson Bagent still. I think you're going to sign like a Joe Flacco, for example. So I'm more inclined to keeping him until there's a situation where a team is desperate enough to move on from him because I think a lot of teams would like him as their number 2.
Yeah. The Bears, there are staff members of the Bears who believe Tyson Bagent has starter's potential. And I think we saw some good moments from him when he was a rookie, an undrafted rookie from a Division II school, playing for kind of a mediocre team a few years ago. Caleb Williams obviously changes that conversation, but if we're trying to compare it to what Ben Johnson had in Detroit, they did sign Teddy Bridgewater like right before the playoffs, did they not? After
Yeah,
Teddy Bridgewater won a state championship as
as a
a
coach.
coach in Florida. Hendon Hooker was their other backup quarterback. So who knows? Who knows? I don't know how Ben Johnson feels about this. I think Caleb Williams still gained a lot of experience last year, good and bad, that I think he could take into next year where you don't need a veteran quarterback kind of reminding him what to do or how to build out his schedule. Hopefully, Caleb Williams took enough from this season to handle that himself, to find what works for himself. You would hope that's the case, where he doesn't need to chase Daniel or Brett Rippon or someone kind of helping him along the way.
Do you remember when we probably fell into this trap of like being like, the Bears, look at all the former quarterbacks they have for Mitch Trubisky. They've got Nagy and Helfrich and Brad Childress and who was Dave Ragone, and then all these guys are in the room, but it didn't really matter.
No.
Yeah, either you got it or you don't.
That applies to both as a coach and a player, I think.
Yep.
But this is from Dylan. Should the Bears move on or trade to DeAndre Swift? I could see them taking a running back in one of the later rounds of the draft.
So we talked about this the other day that Swift was a pretty good receiver on those Ben Johnson Lions teams. And maybe Ben Johnson's like, I still want that. He's just not going to be my 1,000-yard rusher. I want somebody else to be my 1,000-yard rusher. He's an interesting salary cap thing too, Johns, because you get zero financial benefit if you move on from him. None. So you might as well keep him, I think. And there were a few times this year that your eyes went wide, like, oh, that's why they signed DeAndre Swift. It just didn't happen nearly enough.
I think as a starting point, Ben Johnson should be fine with DeAndre Swift. He knows the system, some of the system. He knows some of the language. He's played for Ben Johnson before. That should help. But we also know what happened in Detroit. It's literally the lead of my story, breaking down some of the players to watch in the draft. In 2023, the Lions signed David Montgomery and drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. It completely changed kind of the direction of their offense.
Yeah.
and traded DeAndre Swift and all that as well. So it is something to think about. But as a starting point for 2025, I would think that Ben Johnson is fine with DeAndre Swift, and then still drafting a running back at some point.
This is we'll talk about this a lot when we get closer to the draft, but that year the Lions got so much criticism for Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta. They were the first 3 picks, right? And I just remember talking to a scout who said they just drafted 3 good football players. Really good football players. Like, sure, maybe they didn't have like the measurables to make you think that they were going to be, and obviously you got some questions about like positional value. And I'm curious to see when we get to the draft, because Ryan Poles has selected a lot of guys that are more traits than production. If you look at a Jervon Dexter, for example, and I'll be curious to
Alice
see.
Jones Jr.
Oh yeah. Now Romaduzzi, I think, was your example of traits and production.
Yeah,
both were there. So I wonder if there's a little Ben Johnson influence where Ben Johnson really does value the production and how these guys play. I mean, I think Laporta's traits are pretty strong, but also picking a tight end when they did was a little startling for people. So this is something to keep an eye on as we move forward, because we're so wired that Ryan Poles loves these traits. But traits only bring you so far if you can't fit in the scheme, if you can't produce.
I got a good follow-up question for this. I just got to find it. I am disorganized this morning. Hold on. Just had it too. Keep talking.
Let's try to think about who Hoge is talking to today. Who would be the most random? They had Prince Amukamara yesterday.
Really?
That's a good, like, remember some guys. Yeah.
Who else
Maybe
is down
look
there?
at they got Kyle Long yesterday.
Oh,
Not
you
to be
you,
giving
you you sent me that David Montgomery clip. What did you make of what he was saying about Ben Johnson?
I didn't watch the clip. I just sent it to you.
It was 6 seconds long.
Yeah. Hey, I had a busy day.
He called Ben Johnson a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Where is this question?
I don't want to like give Hoge's other podcast too many listeners. They talked to Rome and DJ. So today they will probably get Willie Young and
Willie Young.
Jimmy Clausen and Jordan Howard. Or
I found the question.
Okay, good.
This is from, we'll say, Briegel. Should the Bears consider tight end Tyler Warren with their first pick? I think he would be an upgrade over Kmet and a Swiss Army knife for the offense.
Yeah, I saw somebody actually mock that a while ago. Man,
that would be one of those picks where you're just like, whoa, because a tight end at number 10 for a team that has so many needs, they could sign whoever they want in free agency, defensive line or offensive line. You should still draft those two positions heavily. So a tight end at number 10 would be an absolute shocker to me, to be honest.
Yeah. Now you have the Brock Bowers effect in play, where I imagine teams are going to look at what Brock Bowers did last year and then look at Tyler Warren and ask themselves, can we get this? But don't you, Johnsy, like look at Cole Kmet and think, here's somebody that just has gone through 2 coaching staffs that don't know how to use him? Luke Getsy did a little bit. I mean, he had a strong year in 2023. But now you've got a coach who understands how to get tight ends open and scheme the ball to them. It can use somebody with Cole Kmet's size and speed and all those different things. as opposed to like, oh, because the flip side of that argument is, oh, Ben Johnson knows how to get tight ends involved. He's going to go get a better tight end. I tend to lean on the, oh, he's going to look at Cole Kmet and say, yeah, I'm going to get a lot more from you in my offense than the other guys did.
Yes. I think he's pretty similar to Sam Laporta. Or is it Sam Laporta's similar to him, or potentially could be, right? Because he's a later draft pick. I just think a better offensive mind might be able to get more out of Cole Kmet. And I think there's a reason why Cole Kmet was in that press conference when Ben Johnson was introduced.
Yeah, I mean, if you're drafting Tyler Warren, I mean, what are you going to be in 12 personnel 80% of the time?
Now there is, if you look at the numbers, the Lions will use 12 personnel a lot. They will have 2 tight ends involved in their offense, but it's not like both of them are getting the ball. Sam Laporta clearly was the receiver, the pass catcher of that duo.
We got a question in the comments, by the way.
Okay.
In the private chat comments.
Oh, from Katie. What Super Bowl commercial are you most excited to see?
Are you excited to see whatever this Matthew McConaughey thing is
With the Bears?
with his Ditka?
No, because I've seen it so many times, like on TV. It's like almost beyond annoying.
Isn't there going to be a When Harry Met Sally commercial?
I was about to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you could always count on a few brands to deliver a good commercial.
For our producer, Katie, When Harry Met Sally was a really famous movie from a long time ago.
I've never seen it.
It's more like a Jahns. Yeah.
My generation. It's way before me.
No, it's way before that. Yeah.
But you've seen it.
It's a classic. Oh my God. It's a phenomenal movie.
And the scene they're gonna use is when they're in the diner where she.
Right. Yes. I think I've actually seen it. I feel like I've seen the commercial already. I think
it's out there. Yes.
It's already out.
I think it's been teased. Like now there's.
So is that not is that not a Super Bowl commercial then?
I don't know. But to your point about the Matthew McConaughey thing, like if I see him like trying to do the Bears again, I just find it extremely annoying, don't you?
Yeah, I mean it is McConaughey. So you can do whatever he wants, I guess.
That intrigues me that he's a part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's different than somebody else. I will say I do like Jahns that in the digital era that I don't have to watch the commercials live. I can wait and get the recap like later that night and see them all on YouTube later. Just because you know this, when you're trying to watch Super Bowl and you've got kids running around, like it's that it's very, very difficult to, because you kind of got to hear, because there's going to be some good humor, some good lines. So yeah.
Okay, let's do one more football question and one more Super Bowl question. This is from SJP19. Rating of Ben's staff, Ben Johnson's coaching staff, ? And most surprising hire.
Huh.
I have like a general philosophy about this. Maybe it's just because of my experience.
I say you're jaded to like ask me in 2 years how the coaching staff
is.
Like
just be very, very cautious about heaping too much praise on coaching staff hires, because there could be a coach that Ben Johnson had rated above, I don't know, Declan Doyle, for example, that he couldn't get, that maybe in 2 years he can get. That's what I'm saying. Maybe Declan Doyle was up there. We'll learn more as we go through this, but like John Fox hired a good staff.
Yep.
Vic Fangio, Adam Gase as his offensive coordinator. Both became future head coaches, but the Bears still didn't win a lot of games. That's what I'm trying to say.
You want to go back to Mark Trestman's staff. If you go through Mark Trestman's staff, you'll find a bunch of coaches who nobody got to head coach level in the NFL, but you'll see some coaches who are still coaching.
There was
and
a
have gotten
lot of
promotions.
praise heaped on that staff. Yeah. Aaron Cromer, great offensive line coach coming from the Saints. Jody Camillus, an experienced special teams coordinator who will help Mark Trestman with messaging and controlling the room. Mel Tucker. And what happened? So it's a combination of players and coaching here.
I'll say based on what we know about these guys, I think, and this is part of it, it's fun, but the Antoine Randall hire is really, I think that's really cool. But it also seems like he's a really good coach. And to get him to come here from Detroit, you throw the promotion on there. I think that is a pretty solid. Maybe if he was able to get Hank Fraley, we'd be sitting here talking up that possibility. But yeah, we just don't know. I mean, you could sit here and say it's great that he hired Dennis Allen, because when you're a first-time offensive head coach, you need that defensive guy who can handle that room. And Dennis Allen can do that. But otherwise, it's hard to know how good these guys are. And I'll tell you this too, Johnsy. The best assistant coach you and I have ever covered, Vic Fangio, will be the first one to tell you that it's the players that make the coach. Obviously, there's a lot more to that. But
yeah,
to what you're saying, we'll know more later on.
But even like when Nagy hired Harry Hiestand, a move that was thoroughly praised around this town, given what he did before, given his success at Notre Dame. Harry Hiestand became a scapegoat within 2 years, along with Mark Helfrich. I'm just saying.
By the way, that's an all-time Bears media moment. When Harry Hiestand got fired, we were in the media room for our end of season press conference, and we asked Matt Nagy if there'd be any staff changes.
Oh yeah.
And he wouldn't say anything. And you and I had been sitting in our seats for a minute, and you elbowed me.
Oh yeah, I broke that one.
As you were breaking the news that 3 coaches had been fired. All-timer.
Yeah. So I like some of the moves. I like the Sean Payton influences a lot. Yeah. But let's not get too carried away with praise and whatnot. Let's see some results. And here's one for you. I got 2 more for you. This is from Andy. Hard Knocks really seemed to help the Bears last year. Do you think they should petition to be in the next possible season? I wanted your answer on this.
Remember Hard Knocks?
Those were positive, good times.
Wow. Yeah. Anyway.
No.
You know what's funny too? Do you think that George is sitting there saying, "I told you so. This is why I've been refusing to do this show for so long," when Hard Knocks had no impact on the results in the field? Didn't do anything to what, I don't think. But you could totally see them being like, "See, this is why I didn't want to do it."
I think the craziest thing about Hard Knocks is that Thomas Brown was never featured.
Never.
Was never interviewed. I can't even recall. You watched it more closely than I did. Was he ever even featured on the sideline at all? I think there's one conversation.
Maybe. Yeah. And then he ends up being the head coach.
Yes. So, no, I think the Bears are going to enjoy not being a candidate for Hard Knocks for the foreseeable future. Last question from David. What is your Super Bowl snack staple, Kevin? Same for beverage.
So my wife makes a very good buffalo chicken dip. So you got the chicken, buffalo sauce, cheese, blue cheese crumbles, really, really good. Usually that's at our house, that's a good Super Bowl staple.
Beverage?
I don't know, Johns. I'm always trying to hydrate. I feel like I'm trying to watch the game, trying to focus, trying to chase the children around the house. But you'll see me. You would see me with an adult beverage during the game.
See, for me, I keep it simple. It's got to be light beers.
Yeah.
Like the heaviest I'll go is Modelo just because of the food intake. You can't fully stuff yourself, especially because like if there's good dips, like your wife's buffalo chicken dip, you're always just gonna be picking at it. So you gotta, I don't know, offset it a little bit with minus the. You don't want heavy beers. That's what I'm saying.
Right. That did remind me the last time there was a big that we hosted like a game watch party for family. We got a case of Miller Lite because my wife's uncle, that's like his beer of choice. And then he came with his own case of Miller Lite because he didn't trust us to have Miller Lite for him. So we have an excess of
Miller Lite,
not a sponsor, but could be one.
They were formerly a sponsor years ago.
Okay, well,
if they want to come back,
hey, I just gave them free advertising right there.
I'm more of a Modelo guy now.
Let's get them on board.
Yes, yeah. I like their commercials. They'll have a good commercial.
Yes,
I think. In terms of food, staple for me, I love having. You mentioned buffalo chicken dip. I like buffalo wings. Some form of wing. Last couple years ago, we had some Buff Joes from Evanston.
That's the best.
So good. It's better there. Like wings don't always travel well, but they were still good. I just think those are something it's like protein. Just keep eating it. So stay away from the carbs. Load up on the meats. Carnivore diet with light beer on Super Bowl Sunday. That's what Adam Jahns is recommending.
All right. I like it.
Quickly before we go, your pick or score, I should say. I got Chiefs 26-23.
Chiefs.
20.
I did yours and I added a field goal. So Chiefs 29, Eagles 26.
Ooh, okay. Do the Eagles lead at any point in this game?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah. I hope it's a fun game. The last Eagles-Chiefs game was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know what I really hope, though, Jahns? I really don't want the Monday morning conversation to be about a call. I know it's going to be, if it's a close game, there's going to be some officiating thing that's going to be discussed. But wouldn't you just love to like get to Monday and not have to talk about that? I sound like Roger. I'm sure it's what Roger Goodell's thinking right now.
Well, after he addressed it in his yearly press conference, there's going to be at least one controversial call. Probably like a pass interference penalty, something like that, where it's not called, or in the Chiefs' favor, it is called on the Eagles. It's going to happen. You know it's going to happen.
Probably.
Okay. Excuse me. We will be back next week in some form, minus Kevin, minus Adam Hoge. We'll see what type of guests Adam Jahns can get to join the show, maybe for one show.
I kind of like the idea of like a 30-minute Adam Jahns monologue about the Super Bowl.
No, we don't need that. Nobody needs to hear me talk about the Super Bowl. I'll talk about it a little bit. I need somebody to talk about it with, though.
Just have Matt Nagy on if they win.
Text them.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time. Hey, Matt. Want to come on the show? Okay. That's a wrap. We'll be back next week in some form, in some fashion. Kevin is out of town. Adam Hoge is out of town. Or you're just laying low. Nice little break before the combine begins. Read us on theathletic.com. Kevin has his free agency breakdown, his annual free agency breakdown coming on Monday. I have our first look at the NFL draft from a Bears perspective up on The Athletic right now. Ton of great stuff coming from The Athletic as well. We have a bunch of writers down in New Orleans. Tons of great stuff already up on The Athletic, so please be sure to check that out. And that's it, Kev. Any final thoughts?
Our first Bears mock draft is out next week, too.
Thank you for reminding me. I might change my pick.
My pick's already in.
I know. I got to open that document. That's it. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the Super Bowl, everybody. Have fun. Stay safe. Talk to you soon. See ya.